So I'm going to invite my friends Jan Vincent and Colleen Baxter to engage in a conversation with me now. We've got a series of questions that we've discussed and agreed with one another, and I'm just going to ask questions, and I'm really looking forward to hearing from Jan and Colleen and getting their perspectives, because they're far more interesting than my own. So I'm going to start with the first question, if I may, Jan and Colleen, and maybe it's worth just asking you initially, if you wouldn't mind just saying a little bit about who you both are, where you work, and a little bit about the context of the organisation that you work with.
Okay, shall I go first? Yeah. Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving up your time to listen to me and having us see it. I'm Jan Vincent. I'm co-director and co-founder of Aspire Learner Support and Wellbeing, which is a women's centre based in the community in Chesley Street, County Durham. We work with women of all ages from 18 plus. We were set up really by myself and my business partner Janice Rockney, were community activists that had worked for many years in women's education in a charity that unfortunately went bankrupt. And we took the decision that in response to the women's need, the charity had gone away, but the women's needs hadn't. So we made the decision to set up a business, a community interest business, which was the quickest way to get us back off the ground. A charity takes some time, as you know. So Janice and I, we both had many years experience working in community education. In fact, we were both adult learners that came into community education through that women's community-based centre. Both of us used the childcare that was offered there. Both of us were not high achievers at school, and we both went back into further and higher education through the support of community education, which, you know, lifted our aspirations and informed us about political protest and how you need to be involved in democracy to change things and how powerful your voice can be.
Yeah.
And as you can hear, I'm sure from even what I'm saying, it's a passion project.
Absolutely.
It absolutely is a passion, and it's extremely rewarding what you get back from the women that you work with, but extremely frustrating about a lot of the organizations, the statutory organizations, and the funding that you have to work within. So I'll let Colleen have a chat now.
Good morning, everybody. I came to Aspire kind of a bit of a wiggledy route. I started back into education, higher education and university when I was 27, because I didn't think I was ready for education or anything further than swanning around the world for 10 years after I left school. So when I went to Durham University and did the community and youth work degree, I met some amazing women activists there. Luckily, they were my tutors, so they were really inspiring and empowering. And one of them recognised my passion around education, and she directed me to the project that was Bridge, which was where we rose out of Bridge's ashes. So I was there straight from university in 97 and didn't really leave for about 10 years, because education is the way that women can make changes for their family. So that was I was hooked then. And I did leave the project for a little while, but came home back to where I started from, back to the same area, and almost the same job that I left 10 years previously. So I came back home, and I'm now continuing the work with the women. Keeps you hooked. As Jan said, it's a passion. It's almost, you just don't stop doing it. And giving or enabling women to find their voices is the most amazing and rewarding and necessary thing to do.
Absolutely. And could I ask a question relating to that of both of you? So you've really emphasised the importance of the area in which you work, and I wonder how much the place itself influences your own work and your activism. And I wonder if I could maybe start with Jan and ask Colleen.
I think the area in which we work, actually in Chesley Street itself, I mean, the northeast generally has been a background of heavy industrialization, coal mine and shipbuilding.
Yeah.
And we've always had, that's always been the model of men going out to work and women staying at home and raising the family. That's sort of the tradition, I think, that we grew up in. Chesley Street in County Durham is a huge area, County Durham, very rural. And Chesley Street itself is a beautiful town, which has some real affluent areas, but it also has some real pockets of deprivation. So that it's those pockets of deprivation that we realise are very, very important to work within. And re-establishing, particularly the older women that remember those, the society the way it was that we all grew up in, and had those messages of they couldn't access education.
Yeah.
A lot of them who were community activists in their own right, particularly if you go back years to the miners' strike and then all the redundancies. It certainly was women who were at the core of that. And as I'm sure you'll know, historically, women were recognised as unpaid employees of the coal mines because the men could not keep up that level of work without the women supporting them at home and providing all the services that they did.
Yeah.
So it's that sort of background that's changing. There's a lot of changing to do about attitudes, and a lot of women come to us still not recognising that they have the right, or even that the key to moving forward is education. It's often that they come for support and companionship,
Yeah.
or support through issues that they're dealing with.
Yeah, because you mentioned that, Jan, it's well-being and support as well as education, isn't it?
Yes,
That's clearly
yes.
what you've been trying to achieve.
Yes, it's absolutely a holistic offer, which I know Colleen will probably talk a little bit more about. But yeah, that you've got to serve all the needs to enable women to raise their aspirations and fly. That's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Colleen, I wonder if you could say something about the area and the impact of that area on you as well.
I think personally it must mean a great deal to me, because I left the area and came back home, and it very much was coming back home and bringing the skills and the knowledge that I'd achieved I moved to Cumbria, and I came back with all of that extra skills and knowledge because I wanted to be in the place that I was comfortable. And I guess working here, we make that for our women. We make a comfortable place, and I almost see it as we give scaffolding to help them. Then we scaffold them as whatever needs they have when they come in, whether it's mental health, physical health, or loneliness, isolation, all of those things that everybody suffers from. And increasingly since the pandemic, we kind of address those needs with the support that we and our other women give each other, and then the extra things can happen, so the learning can happen when those needs have all been met.
Yeah, I remember when we chatted before, we talked a bit about the idea of Maslow, didn't
Yes,
we?
yes.
You know, I know it's an overused sort of idea or concept, but the idea, if you don't meet those, if you like, lower level needs, you're never going to.
It's not possible to move on, is it? It's not possible if you're struggling to feed yourself or pay the bills. There's no headspace for any broader thinking.
No,
there's no headspace for thinking about using your vote, or thinking about having a voice on any open forum that offers that. You can't do that because you're busy thinking about how you're going to feed your family and your children, and whether you're going to have enough gas for the evening. It's just so you've got to deal with those base needs, and that's what we do really well here.
Just because Colleen's mentioned about women being empowered to use their vote and encouraged to, one of the things that we do, we celebrate through women's history, the suffrage movement, the women's suffrage movement. And we work in partnership. We've got a local museum, Beamish Museum, which is an open air living museum. So at least once a year, usually around International Women's Week, the women get dressed up as either suffragists or suffragettes, and we go and do a parade, and we do some debating for the public along with the staff team. And while it's all fun, what it makes the women realise, and what you hear them say is, well, I'm going to vote because this is what, this was my past history for women.
Yeah.
And they encourage other women to do that. And it's an awakening
Yes.
of having that, of realising that they have got a voice that they can use. And where previously a lot of women, it's been like, well, no, I don't bother voting. So that's just a little way of how we sort of introduce that to them as a great fun day out, but with all that underlying message as well.
And that kind of comes to, or makes me think of the next question I had in my head for you, which was around how much the lived experience of being in that area has actually influenced your work, Jan and Colleen. You're committed to that area, I know, and part of it, so.
I think it's definitely influenced our work because we've had an awareness, and certainly I came from a background where I grew up without the aspirations that were instilled in me once I came back into education. But I was one of those women that came back for socialization more than anything, and I could get my child looked after for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And meet other people, and suddenly people were like listening to what I said or asking my opinion about things, which was absolutely mind-blowing to me.
Yeah.
And that was I think growing up in the area, you were without, I was without the ambition or the structure to enable me to fulfill other things, or even realize what those ambitions might be.
Yeah, exactly.
It's that, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the realization that there's something else out there, because it's just popped into my head when I was interviewed for my place at university. One of the tutors said, "So tell me, Colleen, how are you discriminated against?" And I looked at her and said, "Well, I'm not." And that was because I was completely and utterly unaware that just by being a working class woman, I absolutely was. And it's almost that pearl of information that opens up your mind to what's really going on, and to share with other women, to share that with other women who are in the same position as I was, is it is an absolute honor, and it's a need to do that.
Yeah.
My family, I was the first person that ever thought about university, and I had the most amazing family, but they didn't have the outlook or the expectation to go to university because they were thoroughly working class of farmers. So that's it wasn't that I was restricted in any thoughtful way. It was just that didn't enter my sphere until I went to college. And one of the tutors, again, I've been really taken in by this education malarkey. The tutors said, you're going to go to university after this. It was a I don't know what you call it now. It was a course that you did if you didn't have any A-levels. You went to college.
Access course.
Course. Me too.
And I got two.
Very.
Oh, fabulous! Absolutely amazing. The gateway to my career was that 1 year course.
Yeah, exactly.
And the tutor gave me applications forms, helped me fill them in, and I got 2 places. I was offered a place at Wales, in a university in Wales, and a place at Durham University. And the tutor took away my application for the Wales. I wasn't allowed to go to the interview. I was frightened of her, so I did as I was told.
Right.
So the power that education has is immense, and it's about sharing that.
Yeah, it's almost, do you think, from the way you've both described it, there's without using this overused word, politicization, but there's something, isn't there, about knowing about the structures and systems in your life that you've not been aware of, that may be barriers, or maybe just don't even open avenues to you. I recognize that very strongly myself, coming from a working class background too, and that there's not always even that sense that these are possibilities for you.
It's not. There was no possibility.
Yeah.
Not because it was denied. It was just not there.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know, do you? So
no, exactly
you
that.
need somebody to enable that to happen.
Yeah. So can I perhaps take us on? I mean, obviously, you've been both learners in community adult education in some way or another, and that's influenced your evolving work over the years. But I really sense that this is increasingly a struggle for us. And I'd kind of be interested in hearing what your perspectives are on how things have changed. I remember when Janet, you and I spoke earlier, Colin, we were talking, we went back to the 80s and started talking a bit about how that had changed
Yeah,
funding structure. And I remember Jan talking about that and how much better resourced the sector had been in that period. So I
yeah.
don't know if you could perhaps talk about that and the impact of deindustrialization on that as well, increasing need, you know.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I mean, I'm 10 years older than Colleen, so I've got a little bit more history. But when we both worked in the past, there was so much money about, especially European money. And I think a lot of that came through after the Equality Act, that they wanted women into non-traditional education, and very much pushed to get women into IT as well at that time. And we used that funding at that time, I mean, as my journey illustrated, but we had many women after that we would take through the education process into further education and then to university. And we had many successes every year in Sunderland. We would have women graduating from university, women who had never thought about going to university. It was the massive funding cuts and the way that money was taken away from adult further education and restructured, so it became not, and especially when the loan system came in. I can still remember us all celebrating Tony Blair's education. When he was voted in, we were delighted. We thought, what a difference this is going to make to our funding, which it did, but in the wrong way, not the way we were expecting. So the route has gone now for women. Although there's a loan system, the women that we work with do not believe that their families don't believe that they should be going into debt.
Exactly.
Something that is not necessary to the working family. There's a lot of that still there. So we don't see such a success. And of course, it's not the provision either. I mean, at one point we were providing childcare. We were running childcare facilities in 2 local colleges to enable our women and other women as well to go into further and higher education. But they've all closed down in the last probably 15 years. And now we're seen as very unusual having we've got a childcare on-site facility. And without that, I certainly couldn't have returned into education. And lots of the women, and we're seeing an increasing role of grandparent carers or family carers, are they called now, Colleen? Who again are very isolated without that facility.
Yeah. I think when we talked last before today, when we had our preliminary chat, we were talking, weren't we, about how vital that creche or childcare facility had been right from the start of adult education.
Absolutely.
It's been historically vital for women in order
it has. And I think the colleges thought they were justified in taking them away because their funding became focused on younger people and apprenticeships. And although there was adult apprenticeships, it wasn't the same as what we'd offered. And we had to make a very difficult financial decision during COVID, in that we had a really big contract. It was worth about was it 200,000?
Yes.
About 200,000 to deliver learning in the community with the local council through their community education. But it ended up, although it was a big income stream, it ended up costing us more to deliver because the parameters in which we were allowed to deliver and the paperwork, the administration, everything that they insisted on us imposing on the women just became so onerous that we were trying to squeeze the women into a shape that didn't fit in. So we made the decision to give up that income because it wasn't serving our women. And in the end, it was costing us money. We had to employ somebody just to do the paperwork. But that's an indication how, you know, people might have the idea, well, there is money there for community education. It comes through the council adult education, but it's still all structured as though you're offering an apprenticeship. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. All of the paperwork changed very subtly to meet an apprenticeship's needs. So it wasn't suitable for our courses were 2 hours a week for 10 weeks. The apprenticeship courses were 5 days a week for 3 months.
Yeah.
So they wanted reviews at the beginning of the course, at the middle of the course, at the end of the course. So we were really spending times, instead of delivering the content, we were filling in forms with reviews. And the women, because we're very transparent with them, were amazing, and they would do that, but it was just becoming really the delivery, and the women's actual learning was becoming secondary, and that wasn't right.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
didn't feel right for the women, and it certainly didn't feel right for us as a project.
And it feels like that move away, doesn't it, from mature and adult learners?
Absolutely, yes. And as we all know, not everybody gets on the education track when you're 16, 18. And the other thing, the ironic thing about that is the message that they were constantly holding us up for, the community education, was how much we, that they wanted co-production and they wanted students involved, all things that we've always done. But that didn't reflect in the reporting that they wanted. You know, like we could have a student who would co-produce a delivery program, but then they wanted us to have a higher level teaching qualification, where that wasn't feasible, you know. So it was those kind of things.
It's kind of very outputs metrics driven, isn't it? That
Very much,
mentality.
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they use the language, but they don't. It doesn't enable you to do
Not
that.
effective, to go back to Ian's point, is it? It's not felt.
No, you're right. Yes, I was interested when he used that word. Yeah,
Me
definitely.
too. I thought that was really well put. Yeah, I totally agree. So, I mean, you've obviously talked a bit about the evolution of Aspire Learning Support and Wellbeing and what supported its development or stimulated its development. But I wonder what you might say as director of the Women's Learning Centre, as you've been in various guises, Jan, a little bit about what that role's felt like for you in terms of your own experience at a community level.
At times extremely hard, very naive that you know, I had worked as a senior manager in a charity and I had run a centre, but I'd never done payroll or lots of the other behind the scenes things that you've got to do. And I'd managed contracts and all that kind of thing. There's an awful lot that you don't understand goes on in the background. So very much a very difficult introduction to it. But as I say, the passion was there. We've got a very, very passionate team without whom we couldn't work. And we, you know, we often get people who approach us who look very qualified on paper, but we know that it's about having that core passion that you want to share with other people and with other women. The development, I think, again, in the earlier, so we're now into our 12th year?
Year 12, yes.
Yes, we're just starting into year 12. And I think what's changed is that it's always been a battle around the funding. So we have to have a mixed model of funding. And we don't have an allocated funding officer, so we all take part in producing that. We've had very, very good support from our local area action partnership, who was like the former district council. Because of what we produce. You know, we tick a lot of people's boxes for health, mental health, and that kind of thing. But it certainly has seen things like the creche has gone out of flavour, and people are a bit like, well, why do you need a creche when government fund childcare? You know, people pick out from headlines that are on the news. We all know that happens in the media. and people think the government provide this amazing childcare from very young, when as we know that the details are not the same. And so we've had to really change the model around in the last, certainly post-COVID. And although we've always had a holistic offer, we've got a lot more demand on our support services as an entry.
Yeah.
So a lot more domestic abuse we've seen, a lot more poor mental health because the isolation brought about. And as Colleen talked about a lot when we talked last, poverty.
Yeah.
People are really struggling. And during COVID, we introduced food distribution for really it started off more as personal items for women who were in maybe abusive situations and poor situations, things like deodorant and shampoo, and that morphed more into household cleaning and then into food as well. And we've had to keep that up because, you know, we've had to find the funding for that because it's much needed. And that again is going back to Maslow's hierarchy, isn't it?
It is, but it is also a testimony to the fact that you know these communities. What bothers me so often is that models are kind of foisted on us about how to engage at community level. Even some of the old community development and community capacity building rhetoric, which I remember myself from my days at Mansfield CVS in the early to mid and late 2000s. You know, there was always that sense that there was far too little emphasis from the statutory services on knowing your community. Being part of it, you don't necessarily have to being an actual part of that community and understanding those needs for real at a grassroots level. And I think that's kind of really what you've illustrated for me here.
Right, yeah. That is absolutely what it's about, isn't it? Having that understanding. And it's so frustrating when people don't do that. What we've done in the past, again, with women, we've taken women to staff development days for different statutory. We did one for the council and their further education, and they were absolutely blown away by what the difficulties the women faced and overcame to engage in education and what the benefits were for them. And it's getting that voice out there that we very much try and do in amongst everything else that we do. They're more powerful, aren't they? The people that have gone through or are working within are the more powerful voices.
I mean, they really are your activist voice, aren't they? They're people who come through that route and are there in the organisational advocates for other women within the system.
And that's definitely how Aspire works. That the women, I mean, we do get some referrals through, particularly from mental health services for people in early stages of maybe mental ill health, but we also get the majority of our women come through word of mouth. So it's women recommending us to other women. And that's such a huge advocacy that we have in the community, that we don't have to, we're certainly never short of women, are we?
No, I know we're sort of almost out of time now, but I just wanted to ask, and I hope, appreciate this is a really big question, but I guess the final question I wanted to ask was if the women's profile themselves had changed as a result of the kind of mass deindustrialization in your area, and if there was, if anything either of you wanted to say about that to finish, really.
I think there's now women are, there's more an expectation, obviously, of women going out of work and contributing to household economy, but they're not always equipped for that, or the jobs that are on offer are often very low paid, fit in with school hours, fit in with family care, and a lot of that has not changed unless you get maybe higher up in terms of financial reward. But we still see We still see that, I would say. Colin, would you?
We absolutely do. Now, the stresses on women are twofold, because they're expected to go out and earn some money, but they're also expected to take full responsibility of the childcare as well. So they're expected to do 2 full-time jobs.
Yeah.
There's no, that's not rocket science that something's going to break there. You
And
can't.
do you feel that community structure maybe, or that network's perhaps not what it was as well, Colleen, or do you think that's changed?
No, very much. So I think that over the years, we've been almost forced to work in isolation instead of, I don't know whether this is a rose-coloured idea of the past, but in the past it felt like people worked together more. So you knew everybody on your street, people stayed, and so informally supported each other. We've got loneliness and isolation is enormous.
Yeah.
In all age ranges, but we've got a group of women who come, we call them the FAB group, and it's called women 50 and beyond, and their biggest issue is social isolation.
Yeah.
They're lonely, and so their mental health is deteriorating because of that. And it's because that sense of community that maybe we used to have is gone, because people are expected in their working years, women are expected to do 2 full-time jobs, work as much as hours as they can, and also look after the children. There's no time to build those supporting structures, informal structures.
Yeah.
So we get them at the end when they're broken.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, sorry, I just want to say, Sharon, within that, the other thing that we have found is extremely important is offering a safe place for women.
Yeah.
You know, women on their own don't always feel like, for example, walking, or we have a walking group for companionship for women. It's a safe space where they can come and be themselves. And that's very important, something that we always promote as well.
That's brilliant. And in effect, you're creating a community within a community, if you like, particularly now those social networks and structures connected to the mines and other industry have kind of gone. So that's amazingly important. Thank you so much. And I think that was really amazing. And thank you very much for taking time to have the conversation with me.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to tell you what we do, because we quite like it.
I think it's brilliant too. Thank you both very much.
All right, thank you.
Cheers.